Hello everybody and welcome to today's Sunday Tea Time live stream. Great to be here, hope you're all doing well today. Do come say hello in the chat, let me know who's out there. Especially if it's your first time here, come say hello, introduce yourself to the rest of the team, let us know who's watching the stream today and what you're up to. I'd like to say a special hello to Abdul-Kadir, who's commented on one of the Facebook posts recently, say that he watches these streams after they finished on the recording. So hello to you if you're watching again today, welcome to the streams. And if you're new to the streams, welcome. This is just a chance for me to do some drawing or animation in OpenToonz or Tahoma2D, and for you to watch along, maybe learn a few things, and just to get involved with what I'm doing. So do settle in, enjoy the stream. And as you may have seen from the stream title today, I'm going to continue working on this study scene that we started with last week, but also two other topics today. We're going to look at how you can use the macro feature in the effect schematic to make your effect schematic much neater, and also to be able to share your effect setups with other people or with other scenes. And then finally, we're going to take a look at creating textures and using them in perspective. So I'm looking forward to getting to that one. So let me just check on the chat, see who's with us today. Hello there, Maria. Welcome to the stream. Good to have you with us again. We've got Ashnan, who joined us early today. Good to have you with us. And Serjan, hello there. Welcome back. Glad you made it. And we've got the wanted 200-761, who's straight in with the first question. How do you make your vector animation look less 2D? Good question. Very good question. In what way is it looking 2D, and how do you want it to look less 2D? Is when you talk about two-dimensional, do you mean just literally being flat and having no rotation like a three-dimensional object? Because you can use the auto in-between feature to help you create in-between drawings as an item's rotating or moving. That could be useful to do. Or you could import images from a 3D program to show things moving in perspective, and then either trace over them or use the cleanup effect to convert them into images. Hi there, Tom. Welcome to the stream. Glad you made it today. It's great to see lots of names that I recognise, and also good to see some new people in. So it's good to have you all with us today. Who else have we got out there? There's one or two more lurkers hiding that haven't said hello yet. Do come say hello. We're a friendly bunch. So we've got a lot to get through today, and I've been looking forward to getting to today's stream for the past few days, especially with some of the new topics I've added in at the last minute. So should we crack straight into it and look at what happened last week? I think we shall. What happened last week? Okay, so welcome to the new study. So this is how far we got last week with building the study, and I thought I'd put it into OBS. I've arranged a few things to try and get it looking as I want it to. So during this past week, I did a little bit more work on the study, just a small few things. So one of the first things I looked at was this, get it the right way, this table lamp and the light reflected here on the table in front of me. I'm not entirely happy with it, but it's better than it was last week with a single flat colour. So it's kind of a good first start for what I'm trying to put together here today. It certainly needs something else on the table, I think, to my left, to sit here to take off the plainness, and we'll look at that later on today. So I rendered all of the images out from Tahoma and brought them into OBS to use here. There's two layers mainly. There's the background, and the chair is a single layer, a single image. The desk and lamp in front of me obviously is another one. And then also there's the screen that'll pop down shortly at the at my left. Yes, my left, that you'll see in a little while. And also an overlay to darken the room, which I'm still not sure if I like or not. So we'll see in the coming weeks if I change that and how it looks with the rest of the background when we finish that off. Thank you, Maria, appreciate that. I was really happy with how it came out. It does look a little bit orange. It is all made of wood, but it looks a little bit orange, so I'd like to darken that and change the colours a little bit. I'm really happy with how the texture bleeds through all of the wood, and it was Soda Pop. Hi there, Soda Pop. Good to have you with us again. It was Soda Pop who talked about adding textures, and that's why I've got that texture against the background, which looks really nice. I'm happy with that. Yes, I need shadows for the cabinets. I do. Darker corners and crevices, maybe the background looking darker. And also when we put things on the shelves, it might make a difference to the overall look of just looking a browny orange colour. I think that'll make a difference. But that's what we're going to hopefully work through today. So we'll change some of this background no doubt today and then in the coming weeks in the same way as the kitchen. So we'll see how that looks. But let me just bring down the screen and darken the room and let you see that. So this is the idea, to show off different images or videos, to have a screen to present them on and a darker room, but I don't know if that's too dark or not because I'm very faint, so I might just pop the light on and get rid of the darkness for now. Yes, I think you're right, Tom. Extra highlights, and same as Soda Pop talking about the shadows. It's kind of a little bit flat at the minute. It's got the perspective, I think, working quite nice. But it could do with a bit more colour and a bit more change of colour in places. So we'll take a look at that. Some today and some in the coming days. So what else have I looked at this week? Well, I went back to the kitchen and took a quick look. I had a conversation with Dave from Blender Planet early this week because he was working on lots of effects to create his own handmade bloom effect. Okay, thank you, Tom. I wasn't sure if it looked too dark or not, because I've always got the light switch just here, so I can pop the light on if necessary. But it's quite nice to help focus on the image, I think, over here. But we'll see. Feel free to let me know how you think it works once we've had some time in here. So Dave was creating his own handmade bloom effect, and he had quite a few nodes on screen, effect nodes. And I noticed he created the same effect a few times on different days, so I suggested to him how he could combine them all together in a macro effect. So what I did was I created an example to show him how to do it and where to click. It's a very short 2-minute video just to show him what to do. And I used my kitchen for this. So this is the kitchen with the bloom effect as I put together on it, and it makes it kind of gives it that fuzzy look that you see in lots of anime. It creates kind of a dream effect that you often see. So I thought I'd leave it on for today. So when I go for my break later, you'll see this on the live kitchen full screen. So be interesting to see what you think about it when you take a look at it during the break. Do let me know after the break what you think, if you can tell the difference. It's only a very subtle difference. But I put this together and then re-rendered the kitchen to show up here. I also wanted to re-render it because I realised last week I'd not rendered it since I changed the colour of the books at the top there. I'd changed the colours of some of the objects to try and make it less plain. The books were all the same colour, the 2 pots on the shelf were the same colour, so I'd made some changes but I hadn't rendered it out. So I wanted to render that out this week, so I did that at the same time. And I saved this bloom effect that I put together as a macro so I can reuse it. So I thought I'd take a look today at how to put together these macro effects so that you can do the same. And I thought that might be quite interesting for the guys out there that use the effects. Hi there, Carol. Welcome to the stream. Good to have you with us. Good to have you back. So what about my videos? Well, last week, as you may have already seen, on Friday, I made a video about the new feature available in the OpenToonz nightly builds for zooming the X sheet. And it allows you to increase the number of frames shown in the X sheet to double the amount of frames. It's something that's been asked about for many years. I think since I started using OpenToonz, people have asked about that. So it's great to see that come through. But I thought I'd make a quick video about it this week for a few different reasons. One of them being that the video I'd planned to make, it's turning out to be much larger than I'd originally hoped. So I've been working on the script for that, and I've just about got that ready to hopefully record in the next day or two, and then it'll take some editing to bring it down. It's going to end up being a much longer video, and it's going to be an introduction to OpenTunes, because I keep seeing people say, I've downloaded the program, now what do I do? So I wanted to make a video to be able to introduce people to some of the basic concepts, but also to get them running through and drawing, animating and rendering an animation quite quickly, as quickly as I can pack in to a video. So I'll be working on that hopefully again this week. We'll see how it goes. So until then, I decided to make this short video as a way to demonstrate the feature of the X-sheet zooming, to also point out again about the nightly builds, to let people know about the nightly builds being out there, and to keep an eye on them and to check for new features or bug fixes that are released potentially daily, but you know, to check back every couple of weeks or so, and then to update the software so that they're not stuck with the same software as the official release, because there are bug fixes and features going in all the time. So I wanted to highlight that, and this video was part of the reason for doing so. And finally, also, I wanted to make a shorter video. So this one is only 2 or 3 minutes long, because I've spoken with Sodapop a few times about my videos, and I've talked about wanting to make shorter, more condensed videos rather than the 10, 12, 15-minute videos I tend to make. I want to try and keep them short, and this was kind of a good practice for me to do so for the first time. And it seemed to go down quite well, and we'll see how that goes. So after my next very large video, I'm hoping then to come back and make much shorter, tighter ones about very specific small features. And ideally, I'd like the explanation to be only 1 or 2 minutes long, so it's really succinct, so I can point out little features in the software that people might not know about, also that I see lots of questions about. So I see lots of questions about, for instance, how to use the timeline. How do I copy frames? How do I make it last longer? Change the frames per second? All those kind of little questions that I see all the time. I'd like to make a video just for those and make it brief. Hi there, Juan. Good to have you with us, buddy. And I'd like them to be available as well on each Friday, which gives me more time during the week to plan for these Sunday streams and to work on other projects in between. So it's kind of a win-win situation. But what about you this week? What have you been doing? Well, as always, you've been very, very busy over on the Discord server, sharing your art and animation, trying out experiments, and just sharing what you've been working on. So I wanted to mention a few things here. So let's start off with our good friend Greg, the Stickman animator, who shared some of his character sheets that he's created for 3 of his models. And I've got 2 here. So I've got Little Bunny, and we've got Pokio the Tropical Raptor. And there's a third one that you'll see later on attached to the fridge in the kitchen when we take a break. But I just wanted to mention Greg again, who's constantly sharing these great drawings, and I really look forward to seeing these animated. So thanks again for sharing those. Then I want to mention Miracat, who shared this walk cycle animation during the week as he was working through a few problems he had putting together the animation to get the parallax effect. But I wanted to share it because of the quality just looks so nice of the character and the backgrounds, as well as the actual animation. Even though it's not playing very smoothly at the minute through the player, I think you can see exactly the sort of effect he's created. For those who don't know, Miracat has been quite active on the server recently, and is a teacher, and is teaching animation at his school or college. I'm not entirely sure which it is, but he's been teaching it to his students and wanted to use a software they could use at home. So ideally a free piece of software, and he came across OpenTunes. So he's watched a few of the videos on the channel here, and also he's bought into my course on Udemy to help understand in more detail how to use the program. And now he's passing it on to his students and working on these weekly projects, with this week being the parallax scrolling. So I wanted to share this to say thank you for sharing and great job. please keep sharing this over with us. And finally, there's this, again, a walk cycle from Man Leonardo. And this was made with Clip Studio Paint, not with OpenToons. But I really was fascinated with the 3D look effect of the floor as it scrolls past. And he said, asked the question of how I might do it in OpenToons. And it kind of got me thinking to how exactly you might do this. But it also combined with a question that I'd received the day before on a video of mine about adding textures to an animation, where I was asked about how can you make these textures appear in 3 dimensions, so to work on the floor like this, where it's going into the distance or onto the wall. So I wanted to talk about that today, and I thought I'd share this because, again, it's just a great looking animation. So thank you for sharing that. There we go. So that's everything that's happened this past week. So let's head back to the drawing room. What happened last week? Okay, so back in here. Thank you, Tom. I didn't realise Miracat was a female, so her video. Thank you very much for sharing that. I've not spoken personally to her, only the chat on the Discord. And absolutely, I agree about Greg's characters. They're fantastic, all of them. Every time they appear, they just look so professional. So I want to share them with the rest of you. And for those of you that may not have seen one of his characters before, we've also got this little character of me that he drew that I animated to help me read the chat that I've not popped on screen for a long time. So every now and again, I like to pop them on screen, just to have a little look around the room and to help read the chat. As always, I've got with me my lovely cup of tea. This week it's Oogie Boogie, the red mug. Being it's tea time, we may as well have a little drink. Okay, let me bring the chat off the screen for a second. But if you've got any questions as we work through anything or any comments, do pop them into the chat. I can still see it on my spare screen over to the side. So hopefully I'll catch up with all of those. So let's look at the first topic that we wanted to look at. And I want to talk about using macro effects. So let me load in my kitchen scene. Hi there, Dark Snakes. Welcome to the stream. Good to have you with us. Okay, so if I turn on the preview mode, and then now that's rendered, if I alternate between preview and not preview, you'll see the difference, hopefully. The colours are kind of flat and a single colour when not in preview mode. But now, because of this effect, the colours are a little bit highlighted, a bit more highlighted, and a little bit blurred. It's almost like you've put on some sort of cream sheen over the screen, and it's an effect that you see in anime a lot. So it's something I want to try and replicate myself. And thanks to Dave again from Blended Planet for putting this together. He'll be able to explain precisely why he used which nodes and what they're for. And if you're interested, you want to take a look at his channel, where the past couple of videos that he's streamed, he's explained this effect in detail. It might be worth you watching. So Blended Planet is the channel name to search for that. I'll show you the node that I've used today. Dark Snakes, what's the problem, buddy? What do you need help with? What's on your mind today? Do pop it into the chat. And if I can't help, I'm sure somebody else in the chat will be able to. You've got a really hard time approaching the lips animation with vector. Why do you have a hard time? You can try and explain what issue you're having and we can help you out. In the meantime, let me change to my FX room and I'll show you the nodes I've put together for this effect here. So there's the one node. If I explode this, don't worry about that for now. Don't need to understand what that means or why I'm doing it. but let me show you what I've got. So the effect of having this bloom. So what Dave wanted to do was create his own bloom effect to rival the new bloom effect you get with OpenTunes and is in Tahoma. This bloom IWA effect. And he tried out the bloom effect because a lot had been said about it to see how well it would work. And it didn't quite give him what he expected. It didn't give him a bloom he expected, and it was difficult to control, and the render didn't come out right. I don't know why. I hadn't used it myself personally. So he created his own effect, and it's based on 3 nodes in the end. He tried a few different things. So first was this one. Let me open up the options for it. This is the adjust levels effect. And the idea behind this one was to adjust the colours based on the scene, so it would be different for each scene, to isolate just the lighter colours rather than the darker colours. And the idea is that the lighter colours would be overblown or bloom out into the screen. So you change the RGB input to to isolate the colours that you need to move into the next node. Then he created a blur to blur those colours or that effect. And then he used an over node, and I've used the over INO because this one only allows 2 inputs, and we'll see why in a second why that's useful. And then the drawing, which is this column, these columns here, go into go into the over INO with the effects overlaid over the top. There's extra nodes on the left because of the way I've laid things out. So I've got 2 columns here for the background and for the items. So I've used this over node to combine them into a single node to pipe through the effects. This input you don't necessarily need. You could just plug in your column to the background and then through the 2 effects at the top. So it's these 3 effects really are the only ones that you need. And what I suggested to him was if he created a macro effect or macro over these 3, instead of having 3 nodes, he could have 1 on screen and reuse it in another scene. And to do that, it's really easy. You highlight by clicking and dragging a square over the 3 nodes. And let me zoom in a little bit, just make it really clear what I'm doing. Highlight the 3 nodes, you right click and you choose Make Macro FX. And all that does, it combines them into a single node on the FX spreadsheet, and that makes it easier to look at. But really, you only want to do this if you want to share that effect either elsewhere in this scene or with another scene. So now we've got this effect here. You can select it, press Ctrl+C to copy, and then to paste it, you click away, you have to deselect all nodes, and then press Ctrl+V to paste. And now I can use that effect with a different column. You could isolate which parts of your drawing or animation has this bloom. So maybe just the window has the bloom, and maybe just the character, or one of the characters near the window, but not another character because they're not near the window. If you want to decide which parts you want to apply this effect to, it's great to be able to copy the effect within the same scene. So let me just delete that copy. 2 things to notice here. The first one is that because of the effects within this macro, and if I right click, I can open the macro, which basically just lets you look inside it. And you can move these effects and it resizes the box here. But because the same column, this one here, is plugged into the adjust levels and into the over, you end up with 2 inputs for the same column. So the macro again looks a bit more complicated than it needs to. It's got 2 inputs. So to create 1 input, what I did was I used this pass-through node. So let me explode this macro, and by exploding a macro, you just remove the macro box around the nodes, and it just shows you those nodes separately. So I'll delete that one there, and then I'll add an effect. And at the bottom here in utility, you've got the pass-through node. And if you select that, all this does, it allows you to plug in a node to the left hand side, and then that is passed out to the following node, which for a lot of the times it feels useless. Why would you want to do such a thing? And for me, this is one place where you definitely want to do so and want to use this. And the way you'd use it is you plug in your input column to the source, and now I can delete, by dragging a box over those lines, the input from that column to the effects, and instead I can then plug in from my pass-through node to the input of the adjust levels, and again through the pass-through node to the background of the over effect. And now I can highlight all 4 nodes, including the pass-through, and now when I make a macro, there's only one input into that macro. And at the minute it's called pass-through because that's the name of the node. But if you want to be more explicit with how to use the macro, again I'll explode it so I can see those 4 nodes. Realign them, and now you can double click on the pass-through and you can rename that to be clearer. So you might want to call this, as I did, just input. But you might give it a more descriptive name as to what the input is. But you have to be careful with the number of characters to use because these nodes don't show many characters for them. But now when you highlight them all and then right click, make macro, now it shows your name of that pass-through node as the input node into that macro box. So now it's a much simpler node, a single node with a single input and with a named input of what you've given it to what you expect that to be. And as I say, you can select it, press Ctrl+C, click away, press Ctrl+V, and you can use a copy on another column within this scene. But if you want to use it on another scene, you want to save it to disk so you can reload it later. And to do that, very simple, you right click and choose Save as Preset. And then you'll give it a name and hit Save. And when you do that, it's now available in any scene in this new category at the bottom called Macro. So it's called Dave's Bloom is what I've called this one. And I've got a few other macros that I've picked up from other places. But you can create your own macro effects and save them to disk in that folder. And the final thing I guess to mention here is where that's stored on disk, because when you upgrade to a different version of Tahoma or OpenTunes, you want to keep your macros. So let me open a folder to show you that. So this is stored, I'm in Tahoma, so it's in your Tahoma stuff folder. So let me just find that out on a second screen over here. Inside my Tahoma folder, Tahoma stuff, and then let me try and remember exactly where it is. I believe it's in FX, presets, and macro effects. Just here, that's the macro effects. So it's saved on disk, so you might have to keep a copy of these for when you upgrade so you don't lose the macro that you've built. Hopefully you found that useful. Of how to use macros. They're really so useful for storing groups of effects together on disk and to be able to use them later. One thing I will mention for today, one last thing to do with this, is not a macro but a definition or a setup of effects that you can do. So if you take a look at the particle effects in the render section, particles, and then you've got these different sets of effects. These are basically the same effects node, but just with different parameters set in the definition of it. So the actual particle effect is this one up here called particles, and then these others have been created by somebody else, a developer, for a nice way to use that effect for different features. Now, how does that affect you, and why do you say this, Darren? Well, the reason is you can do the same with any of your effects. You can create a definition or a setup specific to you. What do I mean by that? For instance, if I go to the blur effect, a nice simple effect that is probably one of the first effects you use when you get into the effects, you've got the standard blur and then a few other blurs. So if you pick the standard blur and drop it into your scene, and let's give Tahoma a second to wake up. There we go. Okay, if I double click on that, its default value is 45 pixels. Now if you find yourself changing this all the time and you always want a 10 pixel blur for backgrounds maybe, or a 3 pixel blur for a very subtle effect to give your characters a slight blurred edge, then you can set that up as a default. So here we've added a blur node to the current scene. I can just change this for this node to be a 10 pixel blur, and then what you can do is you can right click on that node and save that single node as a preset, give it a name. So this is a small blur for most of my backgrounds for the cartoon. So if I call it background blur, I'll put my initials at the front so I don't lose track of what it is, and then hit save. And now in this scene and in any other scenes, if you come to add a blur, you'll notice the blur now has a flyout. It has a dot to show the default blur, but now it has my background blur. If I add that, when you double click it and look at the preferences, which are on a different screen, you'll see it's always 10 pixels. So a blur has the simple single value to change, so you might not necessarily want to use the saving for that, but for a more complex effect, like for instance, what do I use for the RGB? Image adjust levels, where you've got lots of values to change and you've got a default setup you change to every time. Saving that as a preset is really, really handy. So I wanted to mention that today as well while we're looking at the macros. So that's it. So I hope you found that useful. So let me just go back and check on the chat, see what I've missed. Okay, so Dark Snakes is chatting about the lip sync effect up there. Absolutely, Maria. If you've got a default layout that you've found to be perfect for your characters, saving that preset will just save you time later and also give you consistency for all of your future scenes. And of course, if you change a node on the effects in one scene, it won't affect any previous scenes you've created. But by setting up a default preset and then importing it, you then can import that definition. So it's really useful. Okay, Dark Snakes, are you still there? I guess my advice there is it's your choice. Absolutely, Soda Pop. It really is, and it's something that most people don't know about, or they ignore when they see it in the context menu. But as I say, you see this every time if you go to the particles. You have this dot above the default set for the node, and then a set of examples of how you might use that particles effect. So now for the blur, as I say, I've got my default background blur that I could always use for backgrounds or whatever. Hi there, Dark Snakes. Good. Sorry about that. So yes, it's entirely your choice how you want to do it, and it's dependent entirely on the character and on your situation. Now you're talking about having yes, the chat's blocking again. This is why I don't like bringing the chat on, Tom. Let me turn that off a second. There we go. So we're talking about whether it's just the mouth or the whole face or the head you want to break off. It's entirely your choice. It depends what moves when the character talks. So for some characters, it may literally just be the mouth that moves. And for those of you that watch Dave's stream, this is what he does. He draws the whole character apart from the mouth, and then on a separate column, he'll draw the mouth shapes and adjust them over time to have some talking through his animation. And that's common through lots of anime, where you literally only see the mouths moving. But then for some slightly more complex anime, you also see the chin moving. So in that case, you might want to draw the mouth and the chin. And it's so that when the mouth opens, the chin goes up and down with it, and it might look more realistic, particularly if the character's got a beard or a moustache that might move as they speak. But you might also find it easier to just copy and duplicate the whole head. So once you've got a drawing, and you go to the next blank frame, if you right click, it doesn't show in the context menu there, but you can right click on the extended drawing and choose duplicate drawing. If you draw the head once, duplicate it 9 more times if you're using the full 10 frame option for lip sync. And then in each of those 10, you can move the jaw or the beard or the glasses or whatever other effect you want on the face to move at the same time, but still have the same drawing as the head. So yeah, it's entirely your choice. And you mentioned vectors. I don't think from what you said in your follow-up question that's really affecting anything. It doesn't really matter about the level type, how you organize your character. So whether you're using vectors, standard raster or Toon smart raster, it's the same for all three. That's right, Maria. Yeah, Dave has standard mouth shapes. So by default he uses 3 different mouth shapes to get the speech moving, which you see common in a lot of anime. But it depends what effect you're after and how you want it to look. So the choice is kind of yours, really. And I'd suggest you experiment with trying different things out. So try just redrawing the mouth, or try duplicating and then drawing the chin and bottom of the head and see what works for you. In fact, if I've not turned this on yet. So if I turn on my rolling background animation, so this little fella down here, if I can point in the right direction, him, he's a little puppet that I made for that exact purpose. He doesn't move much, but I've drawn a little bit of blinking and eye movement and some all the mouth shapes, and I've used it in a few of my previous animations where he's popped onto the screen to say something. And for that, I drew his whole head, and I cut out the bottom of his jaw and moved that onto a separate column. And then I redrew the jaw as he was talking, so you can see the jaw moving up and down as his mouth moves. Because for me, for that character, again, that's just the effect I wanted to have. For me, it looked a bit more natural for what I was trying to achieve. So yeah, have a play and see what works for your characters. Hi there, Pipeliner. You're the second or the same person that's mentioned Odyssey. I took a look at it. I'm not going to join Odyssey just yet, but I'm going to keep a close eye on it. So thank you for mentioning that, if it was you yesterday or not. But thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, the thing about Dave's animation is he's intending for the cartoon to be played internationally. So to have it dubbed into different languages. So if he matched the mouth shapes up precisely with English, it would only work accurately in the one language, and in other languages the mouth shapes would always be off. Just taking the choice that rather than spending a lot of effort trying to make the mouth shapes match in one language, to make them not match in all the languages and just be close, and let the voice artist try and match the voice to the shapes. Yeah, possibly the same. I can't remember the name I saw on YouTube, Pipeliner. I don't know if you used the same name there or not, but I did see your comments and I took a look at the site to see what's happening. And yeah, it looks like it's got promise. So as I say, I'll keep an eye on it and we'll see what happens there. Okay, so should we jump on to our next topic? So this is talking about textures in perspective. So I had a question yesterday from Samin Khan, who asked, can you please explain how you can add textures in perspective style, because when I try to make a side wall and add texture, it doesn't work. So I wanted to just try out a couple of things here in a test project, just to show you my initial thoughts on this for you to have a go of. So I was going to share a link to this as an answer to your question on the YouTube channel, on the YouTube video. So hopefully it'll give you some indication of where you might start looking. Thank you, Pipeliner. I appreciate that. Yes, that's what we're after. We're after more people hearing about OpenToonz and Tahoma, and hopefully going in the right direction to do so. So let me start a brand new project here. It can go in my Tahoma folder, and I'll call this texture in perspective. I'll discard my changes on the kitchen because I've not made any changes that I want to keep, and call the scene name test. Ordinarily I'd suggest that you don't do, but because I'm only creating one scene in this, the project name covers what I'm trying to say. Okay, so we're talking about textures in perspective. So I was thinking about how to do this and demonstrate this yesterday when I saw the question. I think what I'll do is I'll create a smart raster level, and then I will choose the texture tab on the palette. I'll add a new color and then choose a texture. And really, for demonstration purposes, we need a texture that has straight lines in it. So the brickwork or one of these straight wooden lines. I quite like the idea of the checkerboard pattern, because then you clearly see the direction of the texture to show perspective, hopefully. So I use the fill bucket tool, and I'll fill the whole screen. Turn off frame range. Every time, it's worth saying, by the way, every time you start a new session with OpenToonz or Tahoma, I do recommend that you check the options toolbar when you first start a new tool. When you first go to draw something with a brush tool, have a look over the values, make sure they're correct and they're suitable for what you're trying to do. So fill bucket tool, I was last doing some frame range tests, so I'll turn that off. The fill depth is fine. I'm filling with areas, and I'm using the normal fill type, which is just clicking on the screen. So let's just save that. How do you use the level, Dark Snakes? What do you mean by that exactly? So although I've painted with a texture, you can't see it until you preview by pressing the preview button, and then you can see the texture. It's a very strange way of working, and one you might not think of doing when you first work with textures, but it's just something to get used to. So you can turn that on and off to change how it's shown and how you work with it. My first thought with this, we'll go to the FX room, as Sodapop said, I believe, is to use the perspective FX node. So I'm in the FX schematic, as you can see at the top here. I'll actually lock the rooms so I don't accidentally move any of my panels. And you can see the FX button at the bottom here, so you know you're in the FX schematic. If you're not sure, press the button at the bottom right, and it changes between the stage schematic and the FX schematic. So just get the one with the FX button. You can either right click on the column node and choose Insert Effects, or if you select the column node, you can press the FX button to bring up this pop-up. You can then start typing into the box, which is a great way to find an effect that you know the name of but don't know which category it's within. So the perspective distort, start off with that one, and I'll insert that. And if I do turn on the preview, you immediately see the effect it has for creating a perspective effect over that texture. And by using the square checkerboard, you can clearly see it's like having a tiled floor going off into the distance. So you've got a couple of widgets you can change. If I double click on this, you can see the options you can change here, but you can change them by typing numbers into the boxes or by clicking the widgets. So at the very center, we've got the vanishing point. So this is the point where all the squares on the grid are pointing towards or drawn towards. So if I click and drag that down a little bit, you'll see how the perspective at the sides, at the edges, goes wider to point towards that vanishing point. That's like you're nearer to the ground. Or if I bring it up, it's like you're higher up looking down on more of the floor. So position is to where you think is relevant. And at the bottom here we've got the anchor point, and that just shows, as you can see, where to start drawing the edge, almost the horizon line for your drawing there. Thank you, Maria. Yes, it's really useful, but it's a bit peculiar to get used to for a few different reasons. I've also got the precision at the bottom, by the way. I'm not going to change precision today, because I was hoping that we could use this effect by rotating it to have the tiles on the wall at the right hand side. Because the original question was asking about a side wall to add texture to it. So if you use the brickwork effect. But if you rotate it by using the animate tool, rotation option, as you rotate, the more you rotate off the base, the texture seems to rotate that way as well. I want it to rotate around the center axis if it could, but it's rotating the texture across its kind of x-axis as you move around. So that doesn't work for creating a wall effect, but it is good for creating a floor or ceiling. So at 0 degree rotation, that's the floor. And if you put in 180 degrees to the animate tool, it can give you the ceiling. Perfect. As soon as you go to 90 degrees, it disappears because the texture is side on in effect. So there's a couple of ways you can handle this. One, which is the easiest way, you could create your effect on the floor, render it out from the render menu, output settings, and render this single frame out as an image. So I'd recommend PNG, but you can use JPEG or TIFF or any other images in the drop down. And now you've got the texture rendered out as an image, you can import it and just rotate that on the sides. So that's the first way. So I'll place that up there, and let's just delete the connection so we've got the standard texture flat on the screen. And the second effect that I wanted to mention is, I can't remember the name of it now. So for this one, I'll right click on the node, insert effects, and go to distort, and it's the free distort. And again, this has, if I double click it, quite a lot of values you can change, and it's quite finicky until you get used to it. But even then, it's easy to make a mistake. So you've got bilinear and perspective. I've only ever used the perspective options. And what this does, the free distort, it's like the distort where you use the selection button, so this one here. So if I draw a box, and it won't actually distort anything, but it's like this. And it's similar to, you can click the corners to resize the selection. Here we go, you can see this. You can click the corners to resize, but if you hold the Alt key, no, the Control key, you can also distort the corners inwards. To add kind of a perspective view to whatever it is you're looking at. And in fact, if I try and do that, this might be a better thing to try first. If I select the whole thing, which is that square there, and hold the Control key, I can bring in these corners. This could even be a simpler way rather than using the effects. I'm still holding Control, and I'm making kind of the shape of a wall at the side of us. And if I preview that, Let's see how that looks. Give it a second. There we go. So that doesn't actually adjust the perspective of the texture, it just paints the texture within that shape. So that doesn't help in this instance. So that's the kind of movement we're after to create that shape. If I undo that, come back to a full screen, there we go. So turn on the preview and you can now use the widgets for this effect. So what we're trying to do is you've got two rectangles on the screen here. It's going to be difficult to see up here, but when you try it yourself you'll see what it is. And you map one rectangle onto the original drawing, and what you're doing with the second rectangle is saying, where do I want that drawing to go to? That's a little bit like the plastic tool, where you create a mesh and then move the mesh. So we've got the source location first and then the destination. So let's zoom out so I can see everything. So I don't know if you can see that on your screen clearly, if your screen's large enough, but there's a large blue rectangle. If you hover over the corners, and in terrible bright green writing, it tells you the location of the corner. So this is top right, destination, and it's the source I want to move first. But both rectangles start in the same place, overlaid, so it's difficult to grab the right corner. So it's something to have a play with and figure out. So we'll move that corner out of the way, and if I grab the top left, that now moves the whole square of the destination. So the source is at the back here. You want to place the source where the images that you want to move. So we'll place this on the camera because that's the size of that whole image there. And on some corners it moves just that one corner, and others it moves just the one side. So again, a bit of experimentation. So that's the source. So we want to say now, where do you want to move it to? So you want to move the destination square to where you want the destination of that that texture. Oops. Undo the rotation, we don't want that. For the destination to be the top there, the bottom left here, and then the corners want to be adjusted. And I think again you press either Control or Alt, move one corner at a different position to the other. It's very, very awkward to get this set up in the right place. I hold Alt to adjust the corner in a different way. I'm not doing so. Holding Control does the rotation. Something like that. So it's a peculiar way to move the shape, and you can just type numbers in these boxes, or as with any of these text boxes, you can click and drag on the black line, the very thin black line underneath the text box. So the source is okay. The destination, if I want to move the bottom right up a little bit, that's the y-axis, I can click and drag under the y box. That's the bottom left, and then the bottom right, that's moved it down, so I'll click and drag to the right, and that moves it up a little bit. So you can type numbers in or click and drag on there to get the effect you're after. Thank you, Tom, for helping out there. Yeah, thank you for answering that. And it looks like you're suggesting what I did earlier. So I've not looked at the chat for a while, where you say you could render as a floor and re-import it and rotate it. Exactly right. And then you asked about using the selection tool to change the corner locations. That's great, as I say, but for textures, that fills within that shape rather than taking the shape and then adjusting its perspective. Yeah, exactly. Yes, the cast shadow effects in Tahoma, Tom. Yeah, it's exactly the same. You choose the source and then the destination for that effect. But it's just really peculiar to use. Hopefully, I think you'll have seen here how tricky it is to manipulate these corners and how some of them affect other corners and others don't. It's something to get used to, but it is something to have a good play with to potentially get the effect that you're after. So there's a couple of effects: the perspective hour and the free distort, to put your textures or other drawings within a perspective field. Yeah, part of the reason that it's a little bit laggy, Tom, is that because you're using the preview mode, you have to be in the preview mode to see the effect of it. I mean, if you turn preview mode off, you can adjust the corners without the lag. Obviously, you can't get to see the effect until you turn preview on. So often it's better to just leave the preview on and adjust it and accept the lag. Okay then, Wanted, good luck with your quiz tomorrow. Hopefully catch you again soon. And don't forget, the rest of this stream will be available on YouTube if you want to catch up and watch any more later on. Hi there, Kronos. So I'm using Tahoma at the minute today, but everything I've shown works exactly the same in OpenToonz. Yep, absolutely, Tom. That's another way. If we go to the FX room, again, I'll take that effect out, remove the connection there, so the column just connects to the scene. So we've got the texture here. So what you're suggesting is go to the output settings, render it out as an image. I'll call it checkerboard or just checker. So that's an image rendered out now. And now if I go to the output for that project, I've got a single image. So again, if I close that, let's bring this into view so you can see what I'm doing. Petty Dragon, hello again. Yeah, I know it does have one or two slightly 3D effects that are useful, really useful for 2D animations. So here we are. If I go to the 2D room and then I click and drag that image I've just rendered out into the view, and it'll add that into its own column. I'll hide the other column, and here now in column 2 is just the image that we imported that we previously just rendered, and then use the selection tool. It's a shame you can't just press Ctrl-A to select everything, but let's just click and drag. And now if I resize this, I can do so with the preview off. And if I hold the Control key on the corners, I can click and drag that to create the effect I'm after. Like that. Yes, so that's you can do it that way as well. Plus, of course, you can reuse this as many times as you like. Trying to think now, if I load that in, it's in the extras folder, is it? Or is it in the drawings folder? No, let's just drag it in. So that's actually affected the original image. It was quite interesting. Yeah, because it is a PNG image that I've brought in that frame, so I've affected that whole image, so I can't reuse that again unless I duplicate it. So you might want to take this image and then duplicate it, and because it's an image you can't duplicate it directly, and this is on my list of videos to look into later. You have to use the selection tool to select over that image, press Ctrl C, and on the new frame, or sorry, on the new level, you can then paste it and then reuse it there. But we'll look at that another time. Oh, hello. Yeah, it is more friendly, but it's only useful really, as I say, for a single drawing, because as soon as you adjust that image, you've adjusted it. So you want to make sure you've copied it, and then you might want to, now I've copied it, I can now duplicate it if I want to. So I can use the selection tool, highlight it, hold Control, bring the corners in for that side. And then on frame 2, I can select it all again because I've got a copy. Go back to frame 1. With the selection tool selected, click on the background and press Ctrl V. And now, again, Control on the corners. I can drag this over for a second copy of that in the view to create the two perspective walls. So I hope that helps you, Samin, with your question about using perspective with textures. Got quite a few different ways of doing so. So whichever works for you is the best way to do it, to be honest. This last method I quite like, but you will need to be careful and think carefully about adjusting a single image you've rendered if you want to reuse it. Yes, and now you can rotate it as well. I do remember, I can't remember the name of the cartoon. I didn't realise it was Richard Williams. Is this the one where somebody is in, are they in the underground station, and I think they've been drinking, and he falls down and tumbles down, and the camera swoops round lots of this checkerboard walls. I'm fairly sure it's the underground that he's on. Vertigo. Yeah, I know, it is quite in your eyes, isn't it, that? The thing is, Soda Pop, if you've imported a single image, you can't duplicate it successfully because it's not part of an image sequence. Oh, the Aladdin one. Yes, that's the yes, that's his last film. I know the one you mean. Ooh, what's it called? The Cobbler and the Thief. That's the one. Yeah, I've still yet to see it all. I've seen parts of it. It looks amazing, but I've heard bad things about the edit and how it looks. And there's been a fan edit you can get hold of on the internet to watch, which is a different version of it, which supposedly is a better film to watch. Yeah, so if I move these two B drawings over there and bring up the level strip, here we go. Let me cut drawing 2 here. So this level, in effect, only has the one drawing, and that's the PNG that's on the disk. If I go to the right and press D to duplicate, it appears to duplicate it. Let me do it a couple of times. But if I reload it, and I'm winging this now, so we'll see if this works as I expect. So just reload this one scene. Now you'll see, if I look at level C, let me try and draw into each one. There was an issue with this I had before. Let me create a bright red colour so it's really obvious. So that is 1, 2, and 3. Let me reload again. It's going quite slow today. Try and bear with it. Okay. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so maybe that's worked. Let me take a look. Yeah, that's worked. So maybe that's fixed into Tahoma but not OpenTunes. So that's something for me to look at. So yeah, just duplication using the D key worked to create you different copies of the same drawing. So you could then manipulate them in different ways. Okay, so there's an issue with the selection tool and adjusting. I know there's an issue here with using the corner adjustments. If I again hold the control key and adjust that corner down, take it slowly, because again on the stream everything goes slower pace. I've had an issue in the past where trying to adjust the corners doesn't quite give you a smooth adjustment. That's not too bad actually. That is like having changing the size of a piece of paper or moving a cloth. Yes, Soda Pop, you was, absolutely. Thank you for that. I seem to have an issue before where using the duplicate button didn't work for an image because I know what it was. I know. Let me show you what it was. If I open up an Explorer view again and go to my Tahoma folder, test texture in the outputs, because I rendered this out, get the right one, texture in perspective, because I rendered this out from Tahoma, it was actually rendered in the right format to be brought in, imported as an image sequence, so it has the 0001. So if I copy that and give that a name without the numbers, I didn't realise what I did there. So instead of just checker, I'll call this checkerboard, but with no numbers. And if I bring that image in, that's fine. It adds the image. Let me turn off the other column so you can see what I'm doing. It's got the image here. And then if I go to the next frame and press D to duplicate, it tells you it can't duplicate it because it's a single frame. Let me try extending it and duplicating there. It still can't do it. If I use the brush tool on the second frame, it's still drawing on the same first frame. You can't duplicate it because it hasn't got the numbers. If we open the level strip and try pressing D in here, it still can't. So I think in OpenTunes you don't get that warning. It pretends it's duplicated. It looks like it's duplicated, but when you reload, you've lost that second drawing. So yeah, let me just go back to the previous one. So Tom's saying at the small end they become rectangles. They do. Was the image originally? Yeah, they were squares. Yeah, so something to watch out for, but it still gives you a pretty good approximation. And in lots of cases, that'll be fine. Because yeah, they seem to get wider as they go towards the end, don't they? They start quite thin and they go a little bit wider. Yeah, so you've got a few options for working with perspective and with textures. But textures are a funny beast in this program. But again, Soda Pop, thanks to you, we've added them into the study room to add a bit of texture, literally, to the background. So should we jump onto that and take a look at that? Because that's the next and final topic for today, is to continue with the study room. So let me load that up. And here it is. So if I click on the preview, you can see exactly how it looks. So I adjusted the columns during the week to try and make this feel more sensible to me to work with and to make it easier for rendering, to render out. So I meddled with the table and the lamp, and that's in its own column. So I can render that on its own. And I've got the chair in the background down here in two separate columns currently, but they will be rendered together, so they might actually move into the same one at some point. But I wasn't sure if I was going to have any animation in the background. So what I want to work on today is I want to do a couple of things. I want to basically fill up or put things on to the background here, ready for using when we go to the study room here on the streams. So I want to draw some books in the background just to put on the shelves. Also want to leave a bit of space to import some images or animations to sit on the shelves in front of it. So I wanted to have a couple of things of some of my drawings or animations in here, then also potentially some of your drawings. So I've shared your drawings in the kitchen for when I take a break. There'll also be some of your drawings in this room as well behind me when we're looking at what's happened the previous week. So I want to include a couple of my favourites anyway, and then some of yours. I do like JP the vector autofill auto close option, and I did ask Malang John when he said what could I do for version 1.3 of Tahoma. I did put in a bid. I requested him to to add the same feature to smart raster levels. I think that'd be really useful to have, because vectors are good, they've got their own benefits. I think being able to throw a shadow down on smart raster would just be neater, especially where you could use the eraser to erase parts of the shadow you've drawn too large, or add a bit extra shadow onto it. Using the brush tool and the erase tool I think would be a lot nicer than trying to use a control point editor. So I think I'd like to get some of the basics on here first before we get to the shadows. I did put in here, you may have noticed, in my Tahoma folder, I brought a couple of things in ready to go onto the shelves. So there's a couple of drawings here I did last year I was going to include, and also my Hypnotoad mini animation. I was going to pop that on using OBS. Any image or video that can sit square on, it's better put it in OBS, because I can optionally remove it, hide it, replace it so easily. But if I want to put things on at an angle, like in a picture frame at an angle, I need to do them in OpenToonz or Tahoma here. I think I've seen SodaPop, the select tool for doing fills before, but I can't remember quite how, what the process was or what the options were. Was it Wolf in a Bowl or somebody else on one of the forums, the Discord, I think, showed us how to do that, or how they did it. So yeah, if you can remember, pop it into the chat for me to take a look at. So yes, I've got a couple of pictures, and also the final thing I want to put in, of course, I want to include my Nixon head in a jar. I was going to pop him on a shelf as well at the top. But again, I was going to create him as a separate animation that could then sit in OBS, that I could choose to hide or replace with a picture on the weeks where we've got lots of pictures that I want to share. So first, I think I'd like to just sketch a few things in here, pop some books on the shelves, to get some items in here before we look at those others. I'm not sure what you mean about just draw it and fill it after for using the select tool. Because when you finish drawing with the selection tool, you can't fill directly in that space unless there's something you know that I don't. And it's very likely true. So if you let me know exactly how you do that, take your time, fill it all in one bit of text, and I'll take a read and we'll have a look at doing that. So let's start off by throwing in some plain books. Let's get some books in there. So I don't think we really need a sketch level, so I'll have a smart raster level. That's going to pop at the front of the background, which is the shelves background. So we'll call this books. So using the standard brush, let's get these sizes right. Bring the size down to 3. So where do we want the pictures? Well, because the screen comes at my left, so the right hand side of the screen, I think this part of the screen here is going to be behind the screen, so we want to have things there that aren't important, that we don't want to see. So I think if I'm going to share some of your pictures, I'd like them on the left. So I might have a few books down the left here, but leave the main part of the shelf empty. But then the right, I think mostly books down here. So let's just pop a few things on and see how it looks. So as before, I can use the control key to do horizontal and vertical lines, and the shift key to do lines at any angle. So let's just see how thick is that. And I've got the preview mode on, so let's turn that off. Undo that line, and because we need the preview mode on to see the texture is actually in front of everything. So let me just remove that by going to the shelves subscene, clicking this button to step into it, and then hide the shelf texture, which was shown in front of the shelves. And if I step out of there, I can now see the shelves without the texture on them. One thing I did say earlier I wanted to do was try and de-orangify shelves a little bit. So let me look at the colour actually of those, see if I can make a difference to these, for them to look a bit better. So if I change this is the cupboard front. And then there's the cupboard handles. So if I go to cupboard fronts at the bottom here, these are sort of quite orange. So let me just darken that by dragging down the value. They now match the tops of these shelves. So let's change these to be darker. And then the back of the shelves, even darker. Kind of a red, a bit more of a red colour there. Let's change that a little bit. Try and adjust the colour. Right, that gives us a bit of a darker look and less orange. If I turn on the texture actually and preview that, yeah, I think I'll leave that on there. You can see a bit of texture in there, that's fine. So, turn off the preview, turn off the table stand view of the texture. If I step out, I can see everything on the main view. Go back to try and start drawing some books. So hit save before going any further. Okay, so I'm in the default black colour. I'm going to create a new colour to draw this in, draw the lines in. And that's so that if I change my mind, I can delete it or overdraw it. And it's better rather than using this colour 1, the first, well, one of the 2 original palette entries, because you can't delete that. And to make sure I don't use that, I'll change that to a mad red colour, and then I'll use the colour 2 for my lines of the books. Let's see how that looks. That's a 3-point line, so let's increase that to 4. I think that's closer to where we want it. Okay, so while I'm doing some of this, how are we all doing today? Do you want to let me know in the chat what you're up to? Are you still here, Marie? Are you doing some drawing today? I saw you've gone back to your, is it Arachne animation you was working on before. For working on the loom, I saw the animations looking really nice. That's coming together really well. And I can see that you're using lots more techniques than you had previously. Things you've learned clearly over the past few weeks and months. Let me draw the vertical lines first for these books. In fact, I was going to add that line there. I'll make these all the same height by drawing them first, and then I'll erase the top part of the line using the rectangle erase option. Let's make these books quite wide. And these can go all the way across. I don't mind them being different widths. They haven't got to be all the same. We'll have them roughly a similar sort of shape. Of course, these are on their own column, their own level, I should say. That's fine there. So that means that even though I can see the lines of the shelves, they're not actually here. So when I come to use the fill tool, I've only got vertical lines. So I need to add in the horizontals to make sure we can fill in the colours. Right, I see. Yeah, working on hands and feet. Well, you have fun with that. They're the most peculiar things to draw, I think, at first, until you start to get a hang of your style for drawing them. But yeah, I've noticed, as I say, using different techniques that you didn't use at the beginning. So it's great to see you picking them up, and I know you're getting quite a few from Dave. So that those streams are obviously working for you. Oh, marvellous. Yeah, look forward to seeing that. You keep sharing, as you have been doing on the Discord. It's great to see. Yes, Soda Pop. Me too. I have seen something with it, with the selection tool and also the erase tool, using the erase tool for fill, because you've got the freehand erase. That was used in some way. And I can't quite remember how. I think it was drawing a colour behind it, placing something over the front, and then you kind of cut out so you can see the colour behind. Can't quite remember. But if you do remember the trick, please tell me, because I'd love to know what it is, rather than using the vector fill each time. But the vector fill will be fine. We can use that. A horizontal line, a vertical at the end. And the books, they haven't really done to be all the same height, I don't think. So I'll hide the shelves just to see what I've got. Okay. Let's have another vertical here. Yeah, so today I'd like to just kind of draw a few books in, fill in a few spaces, import a couple of those pictures of mine. I'll still have gaps on the shelves, and I'll be swapping the pictures out. So again, when I see your pictures shared, I'm happy to pop them onto the shelves here as well. And then I'd like to then work with the Nixon head to create a small animation that I'll place over the top, which I'm again really looking forward to, because it's a little bit of animation, a little bit of movement, something more than just a background. So if we go to the erase tool and change the type to be rectangle, I can then click and drag over the top of these books to delete the lines to the same height. The question then is, do we want to have them exactly the same height and draw a line across the top, or slightly different? Let me do the same and see how that looks first. So again, I'm holding the control key with my left hand, and then I just draw all the way across. Let's hide the shelves. So you can see that's definitely put in only those books. And then on the books level, I'll hit save. Books level, I'll add another colour, and we'll start adding a bit of colour into these books. And the colour doesn't matter at first. We can always come back and adjust the colour once it's painted on, because we're using a Toons or a Smart Raster level. Okay, Maria, catch you in a second. So let's colour a couple of these. That's really light. And I want the colours to be different from the shelves to take away that constant browny orange colour, but I don't want them looking too mad. So the question is, do we want them all the same colour? I'm filling areas, so I can click and drag over them, colour them all in like that. And because of the perspective, we're looking up at these books, so we don't see the tops at all. Let me just look at that here. Yulichek, hello there, welcome to the stream. Glad you could make it, glad you could join us. I think I might leave that as really, really plain and boring, to be honest. Let's hit save. And on the next level, we'll do something similar. So again, using the brush tool, let's zoom in a little bit so we can see what we're doing. And this time, I'll have horizontal line there, vertical line at the side here. I'm going to have the books at a different height. Make some taller and some shorter. I might actually adjust them down as we go across the shelf. Let's see. Let me just throw in some lines joining on here. I noticed on Netflix, by the way, gang, if you've not seen it already, there's the next series out of Love, Death and Robots. So if you've not caught series 1, take a look at that. It's really, really good. It's excellent series. Some of the themes might be are considered adult, I guess, so they won't all necessarily be things you'd enjoy. But if you are an appropriate age, I think you might enjoy it if you enjoy animation. They're basically a series of cartoons or animations made by different animation studios, all with different themes and based on different stories, just covering the themes of love, death, or robots. So they're all quite wildly different, which is what's great about them. So you'll have your favourites and some you'll enjoy more than others. But yeah, the second series is out. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, do take a look. I hope to watch them myself over the next week or so if I can. Yeah, I can see what you mean, Soda Pop. Yeah. These are all the same, aren't they? So let me just go straight across until I get to the lower height. And we'll adjust the minor differences in a second. I'll leave a gap at the end. Save. So we can zoom in a little bit and just take a look for any overlaps that I don't like. Maria's back. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, lovely. So I'm going to erase that little top line there. And let's get into that corner. Change this height so they're all the same. Holding the control key. Do excuse me sniffing. I'm trying not to too much. Again, it's just that season that brings on a little bit of the old allergies. And then the end, that's fine. Okay. So let me copy that blue colour. We'll move that towards the green side of things. Now again, fill some of these in the same. That. I need to add a little bit of perspective there, so let me grab the brush. Actually, before I do, let me just quietly disappear and blow my nose. See you in a second. Okay, that was it. I'm back. Right, using the brush tool, try and use the shift key and map this perspective view here. Using the right colour, of course. Holding the shift key, draw a straight line, and a control key, do a vertical. Paint that. Okay, on the next shelf, let's do the similar sort of thing. And this time, we'll adjust the sizes again. So let's use the control key to draw the bottom line. Go all the way across. And then these can be much wider. Then we'll delete the lines overlapping at the bottom. A bit lower to make sure I cover all of the tops of the books there, and then again using the erase tool in rectangle mode to remove those small overlaps at the top, and the same at the bottom, like that. Let's add another colour, and this time I want to make it a much darker, a purple colour. Let's see how that looks. Hide the shelves, make sure we've got closed boxes, which we have. It's in rectangular, let's erase, the fill tool, and there we go. And because we're looking down, we should be able to see the tops of these books. I just need to add a little bit of that at the top here. Again, holding the control key, straight line going across. Let's choose the right colour. And the shift key to do the diagonal lines. And to keep the perspective going in the right direction is going to be tricky. Let's just do our best and see what we get. This is where using CSP or a 3D program would be useful. Absolutely. I'll just do it by eye for today. Okay, and then let's copy that purple colour by just selecting it and pressing plus, and then bring down the value to get a darker colour using the paintbrush tool, the paint bucket fill, then click, oops, I've not done the end. Let's undo that and draw the end line in, and try and use that again. Yes. Fill in the tops. See how this looks in fact, because they're quite tight corners, it's not filled up to the edges, so we use the rectangle fill tool and click and drag around it, and it fills in a lot of these corners. got them all. Let's zoom out and make this darker. It'll be fine. Okay, and I think I'll do the last one on the bottom as well, and then we'll take a look at the other things going on the shelves. On the bottom, we'll have a set of books again. We are looking down on them, so I need to add the perspective lines in. So I'll do that before I add the fill, so we can see the corners here of the two shelves to help me guide the lines in the right direction. Yeah, I've still never used CSP, Soda Pop. Okay, so we'll choose the black colour palette entry. Again, with my left hand on the keyboard, holding the control key, let's draw a horizontal line. Then we'll start with the verticals. We'll start off with some tool books, as before. Shorter ones, I'm going much shorter for these. In fact, because they're shorter, let's make them thinner as well. Now use the rectangular razor again to make them all the same height. I'll go even shorter. Then we'll see how much trouble I've made for myself by putting these all in perspective. Possibly quite a lot. Even more so by adding lots of them. So, the eraser tool, I'm in rectangle mode. I can click and drag, snip off the tops of those lines to make them all the same. Same there. Same for these, and the same for the end ones. Oops. Same for these end ones. So let's just add the tops of the books. Again, holding the control key, they'll all be the same. Let's not go too low. And so will these. So will these. And so will these. And then comes the hard part, trying to get this perspective in place. So let's look at this. I'm holding the shift key, so I can do a line at any angle. And the perspective from the corner is kind of that way. If I'd got a single vanishing point set, this would be easier. So let's try it. If I zoom out and add a vanishing point by pressing Control and Alt, as it says at the bottom of the screen here, and pop it just over here to the left somewhere where the lines are roughly going. And let's adjust it by showing the vanishing point rays, make them very visible, making as many as I possibly can so I can see where they all are. And then we'll click and drag this, oops, by holding Control and Alt. No, you can't drag it, but I can click on it to remove that one and add another one to the side until these angles are all better. So I'm looking down here at the angles on the corners. See they better match those rays like that. It's not too bad. A bit to the left. Not perfect, but it's going to be consistent at least for this one shelf. And that's all I want, a bit of consistency. So to draw the tops of the lines, I'm going to hold the Alt key, and I can draw from the top of the book across to get these at the same angle. And I'll do that from the top corner of every book. I need to make sure I've gone high enough So when I cut off the tops with the eraser tool, they all reach the same place. Turn off the shelves and see what I've got there. Okay, so I need to add a vertical line here at the side so I can complete those fills. I'll hit save and then use the erase tool again in rectangle mode to cut off the lengths of these lines for the joining books to be at the same place. You just nip off the extra lengths so they all join up. Now I can hold the control key and then draw a horizontal line for the tops books. Now I've got the top of that book, I can come straight down and that'll show me where to join the horizontal for that one. I do the same here to find the corner. No, that's not right. Let me undo some of those. Try again. So drop down the vertical from that book, and where it joins onto the next line is where I cut off this line to for the height. So when I use the brush tool, I can draw a horizontal from that corner. And again, I'll drop down the next line. Using the erase tool, I cut that off the bottom corner. And just keep moving across, joining these books together at the back. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect or super accurate, it just wants to be consistent. Let's turn off those vanishing point rays. Turn off the shelves. Check I've got complete shapes I can colour. Then add some colour into there. So I've got a mix of colours already. I might reuse some of the same ones or add new. So let's take the blue and duplicate that. We'll move it around a little bit. Let me use the bucket fill. Make sure I'm in normal mode, just filling areas. I'm not using auto paint lines at all. I want a darker version to go behind. Just the gap there. Yeah, it doesn't quite make it to the edge. If I use the control key and complete that line, now when I fill dark colour, that will fill. Good. I can see a small overlap there, so using the eraser I will take away that overlap, and at the bottom of here is a few more overlaps there. I'll cut those off as well. Let's bring the shelves back so we've got some context for adding the right colours. Back in the books column, I'm hitting save again. Save early, save often. No, for Tahoma, Lazy and Easium, it's not necessarily as useful as for OpenToonz or other programs. And to be honest, the options in the brush tool for drawing straight lines and perspective lines is the main reason I'm using Tahoma. With the release of 1.5 OpenToonz, it's copied over some of the useful features and the presentation style of Tahoma, so I'll be more likely to use OpenToonz with that. Things like the plus button on the palette editor, the layout of the rooms, the new colour themes, that kind of thing. But it's missing these extra lines for the extra features for drawing straight lines on the brush tool. And if they could move over to OpenToonz, it'd be great. I mean, I was talking to Jeremy earlier, who's now back with us, looking after Tahoma, working with Man and John, hopefully on the next release. And one of the questions he said earlier today was, what would you like to see for the next version of Tahoma? And my answer was simply having it merged with OpenTunes. I think it would be great if the two programs work together and were just a single program instead of having two forks almost identical. But I don't think that's going to happen in the near future. So in the meantime, we're still going to have to juggle between both programs. One thing I'd like to change here, looking at this, is the books are placed at the very front of the shelf. I think I'd like to change that. So I'm going to erase the first part of these books here, so you can see the shelf. And that brings up another issue we'll get to in a second. I let all the books sit at the same level, that's fine for now. So we need the books to sit in perspective properly here. So I'll draw the line up. Oops, zoomed as I was doing it. From the corner of the shelf. We undo that and try again. So a line up here. And then going diagonally, holding the Alt key to there. Not really what it should do. I've not got perspective right there. No one's going to notice. I'm not too concerned with that. So what I will do is I'll erase this additional book at the side. Using the brush tool, let's add this line back in. Then I'll erase using the polyline. I can draw a line diagonally there. Let's try the normal mode, zoom in, just to take off a little bit there. And using the brush tool, holding the shift key, I can draw just diagonally. Keep the line the same thickness, just there. So at the front it looks better, the back's not quite right. I don't think it's something that'll be noticed. So what I think I'll do is I will copy a colour, use the RGB picker to pick the shelf colour for that. Yep, it's picked off another level. And then I can use the paintbrush tool just to paint over where that line is to hide the actual line here. Turn off the shelves. That didn't do so. So instead of painting lines, paint areas. Yes, I can just paint a blob of colour to patch that up. And you'll never know. Then I'll use the brush tool just to paint a vertical line at the corner there, just so it seems to match what was drawn on the shelf. Okay, so let's add a few more colours. So we'll add the green colour as an additional one. We'll adjust it again, make it a bit darker, the tone a little bit, and using the fill tool, take the front there. Hello there, Vikash. Good to have you with us. Thank you, it's very kind of you. Glad you could join us today anyway. I've seen, obviously I've been answering some of your questions and you've been following along some of the tutorials. So if you have any questions today, of course, do fire them in. So I'm going to duplicate that colour as well with a darker version. So today I'm just completing the work on this study room that I'm using during the streams. A bit too dark there. So a bit of background painting, and then shortly I'm going to import a few pictures and a couple of other things. Hopefully you can hang around and see on that. What time is it at the minute in India? To give you a time check, everyone, where are we? It's 10 to 5 here in the UK, 10 to 5 PM, I should say. I'm going to add a new colour and make it lighter. Let's choose more of a red sort of colour for this. Let's fill in those. It's more like a pink, so we'll adjust that. Now we can see it. Again, I want it super dark or super light. I want it in between. I thought about titling the book Soda Pop, and in the kitchen scene I did sort of scribble a bit of a a name on the side of the book, you'll notice, but they're quite small to be putting actual words on to be readable. So I'm not sure if I will. For now, I think I'm happy just to have the book sort of shape on there. And in fact, because I'm rushing a little bit, I'm making these almost like cereal boxes. They're quite solid and square. I'm not drawing the actual curvature that you would really have at the side of books. So I've not quite taken the time I should to make these look nice. So again, we may come back and tweak them at a later date. Then again, let's make this slightly darker for the back and the side of those. And the final set of books, what colour are we making these? Let's just fill them in with whatever that is. That's a blue. Yeah, it's a deep blue. Let's make it slightly less deep. Copy it and then make that darker for the back and the left. And again, it's got some corner gaps it's missed, so let's choose the rectangular option to fill that way. Good. Put that back to normal. Yes, that's fine, Vikash. Discord is a perfect place because then if I'm not around, there's always somebody around that can help. So just pop your message in the questions channel and somebody there will certainly help you. So yeah, so these books here, they're very square. So ideally, I think you'd have a bit of a curve on the edge of them, kind of show more of a book shape. But because they're only in the background, I'm quite happy for them to sit as boxes on a shelf. That's okay for now. Okay, so that's some books down the right-hand side. I also wanted to import some images, which I might do in a second. I've been going for a few hours now. How did I say it was? 5 to 5, so that's almost 2 hours. So I think what I'll do is I'll take a short 5-minute break, grab myself a fresh cup of tea, freshen up, and then be right back to continue with this. So if you'd like to grab yourself a cup of tea, and I'll see you after the break. There we go. That's unmuted. These things happen. So welcome back. Just caught it, Soda Pop. Just caught it. It should have changed when I changed back to the normal drawing room scene. Something to fix. So yes, I was just saying at 10 to 10 in the morning. Always seems peculiar when I'm thinking it's 5 o'clock in the late afternoon, coming towards evening. But for some of you guys, it's first thing in the morning. Others, it's early hours of the morning. So yeah, great to have you with me anyway. Glad you joined me from wherever you are. So hopefully the sound's coming through okay clearly now. Yeah, I want to add a couple of things onto the shelves. I don't want to go too mad today because I could be here all day just putting books on the shelf. That's not very interesting. So what I think I'll do first is I'll import a couple of pictures that I wanted to add in here too. Let me extend the book column to here, 36. Screen goes to 37. So let me extend these out to 42. They all map together for rendering the animation. The only animation in here is the screen coming down. Even though everything else is on a single drawing, there's the animation of that moving down. Okay, so what drawings did I want to bring in? So I've got 2 drawings here of SpongeBob and the pool house I wanted to add. One of those I'll add, I think, directly in OBS. And the other one I might put on my desk, possibly. See if it gets in the way. Let me try it and see how it looks. So I'll drag in the pool house image, and it's going to be gigantic. I'll hit import. That'll take over the whole scene as expected. Let me use the selection tool for what we was talking about earlier. Now select it all. Let me use the animate tool first, in fact. Change its size and position. So reduce that down and place it here on the desk. Thank you, Maria. I really enjoyed doing this. It was my first experimentation with the perspective options in Tahoma. So it was really enjoyable for me to work on that and actually find the tools that work for me. So I really enjoyed doing it, which is again one of the reasons I wanted to bring it into this scene. Thank you, yes. Thank you. So let me, now I've got that in the right place, try the selection tool around it, and then using the control key, let me change perspective here. I'm not sure if this is the best way to do it, or if I should use the perspective tools that we spoke about earlier for textures, because that is not destructive then. I want to see how this looks first. I want to draw a frame around that, so I'll add that in as a second drawing. Because the desk is quite small there, so I'm not sure if I've really got space for that to sit on it. So I might pop it on a shelf rather than there. So let me undo that. Go back to the animate tool and find a shelf for it to sit on. Maybe one of these. I'm trying to think where to place everything so it's not all crowded in together. Because I want to include this. I was going to put SpongeBob in on one of the other shelves. Nixon head, and then Hypnotoad. So there's only 4 items of mine, but I was going to swap them out for a couple of your items on different weeks. could just leave it in as a flat image. In that case, I could do it with OBS. That would keep this simpler. So let me delete that column, hit save, and then from the browser room, it lists all of the imported images and the levels I use. So if I right click on there, remove unused levels, that'll take the pool house out because it's not in the timeline, and also anything else that I'm not using. So I think I'll leave that out of here, and we'll add those drawings in OBS separately. So I think what I'll do next is to take a look at the Nixon head. Might be the best thing to do for that, to be honest. And that'll finish off kind of the most part of this scene that we want to work on today. Because these other three will just come through on OBS. And I can set them up in a second in OBS so we can see how they look. So let me start a brand new project from the startup pop-up, and we'll call this new project, instead of being in Tahoma, I'll put it in my OpenTunes Streams folder with all the other stream projects. And this one can be called Nixon in jar. Okay, let's do file, load as a subscene, and I'll point to the project I've already got that I used last time with President Nixon. For those of you that didn't see it, it's in my Tahoma folder, Nixon project, go to scenes, and I just choose the Nixon, which is the main part of that project, I believe. Let's import that. So I've got a local copy in this scene. So here he is. So it's in a subscene. So the first thing I want to do is to explode that, so I can see all the columns. I'll maintain the parenting relationships. So now I can see all the columns I used before. And I don't want the soundtrack, so I'll select that column, press delete. I don't want the background, so I'll select that column and press delete. Two more columns here at the bottom. I think it's empty, so if I right click and choose remove empty columns, yep, they're gone. Then it just leaves Nixon's head in the jar. There's an animation key, let me delete that, and that's just his position. And then if I explode this subscene, maintain the parenting, you should be able to see the drawings of how he looks. Good. So again, I'll hit save before I start. Yes, we were talking about shadows earlier. I've not touched yet, Soda. You're right. Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah, to keep the line work. Although to be honest, with the shadows, because the line work is black anyway, it won't make a difference. You'll still get to see it, even with a shadow over the top. If your line work was coloured, say you had a red line, if you add a shadow, it would make only parts of the line like a darker red. So you'd want to use the palette filter to pull out the red lines to keep the lines red consistently with regardless of shadow or not. So I think I'll be okay with that. But you're right, yes, we didn't add shadows in there. We could do with doing some of that and possibly even a bit more texture over the outsides to add a bit more of a different feel for the room. So maybe we could do that. Okay, so all I want for the head is, I don't want him talking, so if I just hit play on this, and no doubt it won't play at full pace. There it goes. Yeah, it's going to stagger. Got a little bit of animation where he turns around, lots of blinking, he says some words. That's going to go really slow, so let me do the preview, might be better. Preview settings, shrink it down by to a third. Let's hit preview. and let it build that up in the background. Yeah, so I just want him kind of in the background, not doing much, not being too distracting. So I don't want him to do any talking, so I need to remove that. Let's hit play and see what we've got. A bit of blinking, he turns. He says, "Hello, fellow Worthicans," I seem to recall. Happy Independence Day, and a few other things. And some as well. So I just want to include a bit of movement, looking one side to the other over a longer period. So again, I'll render this out outside of today's stream. But blinking, a bit of movement, so I'll use the plastic tool that I've got on there, just to have his head moving a little bit. I'd quite like to add some more animation, but I'll do that another time, of potentially with them eating fish food. So one thing in Futurama that they do is they feed the heads in a jar with fish food. So you see them sprinkling it over the top, and then the heads often look up and do some little kissing to eat the food. So I'd quite like to do that, I think, at some point. But for now, just having them in the background, I think is going to be pretty good, is what I'm after. Okay, so let's see what we've got. Right, so there's the blinking. The first few drawings, 2 to 6. Let me bring up the level strip. And if I go to his head column, we can see exactly how many drawings he's got, hopefully. So change that to show the head. So there's 3. It's a sub scene. So if I step into there, right, so it's yet another sub scene showing him moving and talking. And that was so I could put the plastic mesh over his whole head and have that. I believe I've got some swaying in here. It's been a while since I've seen this project. So from here to here, you see his head leans backwards a little bit, and that's with the plastic tool. Just to show that bit of movement, it adds that bit of life. Talks, and then he comes forward again. Yeah. He just leans back to talk and then forward. And it's quite large in the jar, so there's not a lot of room to move around, but it just adds that little bit of life to him there. I'm guessing later on he'll do the same, facing the other way. So yeah, he leans back. Be careful not to put his head outside the jar, and then he comes forward again. Yeah. So yeah, there's lots of that. So if I step into the head subscene, and this is where I've drawn his eyes, pupils and mouth on a different level in a different column. So this is what we were talking about at the start of today's stream, about how you break up a face or a puppet for lip sync. If I go to the mouth column and then open my level strip, you'll see I've got 10 different mouths here. That when placed over the top of his face, add in to the rest of the drawing to create a realistic looking face. So everything's locked in here, so let me unlock this. Don't need my sketch reference. The direction column, was that to, yeah, that's to change to flip direction as he turns around. Let me get rid of my reference drawing, get rid of the sketch, by that. I'll unlock the direction and the camera. I'm not using the camera. So I want to pace this out quite slowly. So I'm going to have many frames of him just sitting there and then doing a little blink. And then perhaps a small, if I go sideways, a small movement backwards and forwards. And his eyes looking around a little bit. And then you can turn around and do the same. Paste that out. And then that can be on a repeating cycle of a video that I'll drop onto a So let's see what we've got and see if I can reuse what's here without having to delete it and start again. I've got a blink first, and in fact the way I did this was I've packed in, I believe, all the animation without the timing in this subscene. If I step out, yeah, you can then see I've extended a single drawing from the subscene and then some animation of the blink, and then again I extend drawing number 6 a number of frames before we get the next part of the animation. So I've put the animation in the subscene without any timing and done the timing outside. So that works quite well. I've done this quite a lot, and it just keeps things isolated. So while I'm in the subscene, I can just think about the movement, and then I can step out, and then I can pace it out over a longer period. You grab a cuppa. And while I'm having a drink, is there anybody here new that I've not seen before that's not said hello? If so, do say hello. Let us know who's out there. So we've got the eyes movements in here as well. Got some first blink, and then I've got head turn. Right, so looking at the drawings here for the eyes, I've got drawing 1, 2 and 3 is closed, 4 is opening, and then back to 1, and then 2 and 3 is closed prior to moving. Right, so the first part is just a blink. So I'll go to drawing number 7, and I will insert some space here for me to do some eye movement. And I've added a keyboard shortcut here in the scene menu for insert frame. Is Control Insert. I've added. There's also Control Delete to remove a frame, and that adds a frame to every column from the current frame. So if I hit Control Insert, you undo that, then to come back one to draw to frame 6 of where the eyes open. So Control Insert, and it pushes all the drawings to the right and all the keys to the right, which means I can now insert some eye movement in that gap. So I'll insert quite a few frames there. Now go to the pupils column. I'll use the animate tool. I'll zoom in a little bit, and then where drawing 1 is then held, I'll then add some eye movement. So on drawing 1, I'll add a key exactly where it is. Drawing 7, depends if you want his eyes to furtively move or move slowly. So let's move that key over a little bit. So there is some in-betweening. Let me check in my preferences on the animation tab that the default interpolation is speed in, speed out for one step, which means there should be some interpolation between the two. But there isn't, so if I right click on there and apply the speed in, speed out interpolation myself, it was set to constant interpolation from the previous animation on this column. Now I've got some movement down here, and again I'll just add a bit of movement every couple of frames. Going to end back up on row number 6 there. So again I'll hit Control Insert, add key for number 6 in the middle here, and then Control Delete, close that gap up to where we were. Let's take a look at what we've got here. So a little bit of movement, just looking around. We'll paste that out, and then we've got a blink followed by the full head turn to the opposite side. And I need to move the eyes so they're open in the right place. Use the onion skin to see frame 28, and on frame 27 I can move them just below that, which shows as they're opening they're going back into there. right place. In fact, it already opened there, so I can just bring that back one frame there. I don't need that second blink because that is the same as the first one, but it just flipped over. I can change that. And I think I might delete the remaining drawings and keys on here and then add a little bit of mouth movement myself. So let me delete the audio, we don't need that. And then on frame 33 or so, check, his eyes are open there. On drawing 1, so here on frame 30, I'm going to press Control Delete, start deleting all the frames to the right. And then we'll build up the rest of the animation around that. In fact, that's going quite slow, so it might be worth me clicking in the first frame on the top column, holding shift and clicking in the last frame on the bottom column and pressing delete. And do the same for these animation keys. Delete those. Same for direction there. Okay, so then we've got a small animation where he blinks, he looks around a little, and he closes his eyes to turn to face the opposite way, and then we can play the original animation but flipped to the opposite side. So that's the basics of a bit of movement here. Well, it'd be interesting, Soda Pop, if they do that, adding a timeline import to use between Critter and OpenToons. It would need to go both directions, of course. What do you think? Yeah, it needs to go both directions. So to import to Critter and also export from Critter to OpenToons, so then you can just choose the program you want to use to drawing, I guess. It still have the same timeline timing between both programs. So yeah, okay. Be interesting to see if they do something like that. I also had the eyebrows. Yep, they had some extra movement. So let me again open the level strip. Save. Let's take a look through these drawings in here. So click on the first one and then using the cursor keys to step down. So that's the blink for the first 4 frames. Okay, and then the bottom few drawings were his eyebrows, is what I was looking at. There. The eyebrows raising from drawing 10, 11, 12. And that's some movement for the other animation. So I'll take a look at adding those in as well. Okay, so eyes are here. So before he turns around, he's drawing 2 for closing the eyes, so from 14 onwards. So again, Control Insert, move everything over. And now in the gap on frame 15, I can Control Insert a couple more times. And then on the eyes column, I can press the Q and W keys to change between those drawings in timeline. So I'm drawing 1 here. So if I highlight over a couple of the frames, I can press W and it'll change all those frames there. The annoying thing is because it changed it from drawing 1 to drawing 2. Drawing 2 is in the following frames. I'm going to press W again. It left those on drawing 2, which is fine. I said drawing 10. Let me go to drawing 10. Let me just see. Yep, that follows on nicely. And then drawing 11 and 12. And what was 13? No, we don't want that. So 12 is fine. So 10, 11, 12. his eyebrows getting higher and his eyes opening. So I can move that around a little bit as well. Okay, well I'm sure you've popped enough in the feature request to the critic guys to let them know some of your ideas of what you would want. But yeah, if you get some feedback on that, do drop it in the Discord. Let us know where that goes. It could be quite interesting. So now his eyes are wide open. I want to insert a few more frames. And again, I think I'll move his pupils. So if I put a key on frame 17, and now again, now they're open, I'll move his eyes over there. Let me add a couple of frame movements. Needs to have a bit of rotation. Whoop. If I hold Alt, you can slow down that movement. So as you rotate or move, it moves at a slower pace. That's useful. Thank you, JP. Great. Good to see. Make sure I've not broken anything else though. So the eyes are opening. So there, I'll hold Alt again and bring that rotation around. And I think as they're opening, I should look to the side. See that? So there, they look to the side. Perfect. And now they're there, I think I want to have some furtive looking around. I'm going to copy that key into the next couple of frames. Annoyingly, it pushes along the next set of keys, so I need to bring those back. So I'll click the first key, hold Shift, and then press the last key. Bring that back to where it was. Then I can adjust the frames of 18 and 19 for him to just look around a bit. And we'll sort out the timing again on the scene up above. I'll press Control and Delete to delete those spare frames that I had there. And then let's see how that looks. And the rotation continues along the rest of the animation that I've just set on the middle frame. So I need to adjust that back. I'll hold the Alt key again while I adjust that rotation. Get the two pupils in line. Check they're in the right place when he turns around. Yes. Duplicate frame there, so I'll just remove that. Control Delete. So that's his eyebrows raising, the eyes moving around, and him turning around a little bit to the opposite side. So then really the only other thing is possibly his mouth moving a little bit, opening and closing. So let's see where to add that. So I've done his eyes first, I think prior to him turning around. Okay, so from frame 20, even though I've just removed some frames, I need to move them along. So Control Insert. And I'm going to start that because I can play these in reverse where his eyebrows open up. I'll bring this drawing down to number 1 by pressing the Q key, and that's his standard neutral look for sitting there looking forwards. And now I've got that set for neutral key on 20, I can press Control Insert, insert a couple of frames, and let's see if we can do something with the mouth here. If we go to the mouth column on frame 21, and I press the W key again, just to take a look at some of the mouth shapes we've got. And the positioning is not right, so we'll adjust that. Maybe there's a couple of things we could do. I don't know why they're so offset from each other here though. Let me just check on the stage schematic. see how they're connected together. The pupils are on their own to the table. Got the direction column, which is to change the direction of the head to flip the opposite side. And the mouth, eyes and head are all just working off the direction column, which I believe only uses the flipping side, so it shouldn't adjust the position or rotation. So it should be fine for the mouth to stay aligned. Right, so their mouths for turning round. Okay, so back here again. They're the turning mouths. Right, so that's why I don't need them. So he's got his mouth open wide. I think the teeth one. So going from plain, showing his teeth. That one. Is going to be okay. Go around to number 8. Drawing 8. There we go. So I need to copy these keys for the eyes. Make sure that they don't move too much while his mouth changes. So yeah, it does that. Let me control insert, add another one, and maybe one of the ooh shapes, just to give them a change of expression. Ooh. Yeah, just that one. That's fine. So I'm going to leave that as the set of face shapes we're going to use over the main timeline. So if you remember, these shapes and these frames are stored within a subscene. If I step out of this subscene, I've now got a single head column with all of those drawings I can use in whatever timing I want to do. Yes, Julie, this project, if you search on my channel and type in Nixon, you should be able to find it straight away. I made a series of videos about putting him together for doing the lip syncing and the animation for him, as well as painting the background. So there's a series of videos over a number of weeks that show what I did for Nixon here. It is very useful using sets of mouth shapes. And again, I've got a playlist which didn't use this character, used a different one to show how to do lip syncing as well. There's quite a few videos that might be useful for that to take a look at. But this uses the same technique for the Nixon head, where I've got 10 different mouth shapes for the talking, do the language, and I chose the first 10 drawings for that. Then a few more drawings just to create different mouth shapes for when he turns around. But once you've built your 10 mouth shapes, yes, using the Q and W keys, which if you haven't come across before, are the drawing substitution. Just heal up to switch forward and backwards between drawings in the same level on the current frame. So if you extend out a single drawing along the timeline, then you can move frame by frame and press W to increase the number for that single drawing, or if you highlight a number of drawings, W increases those drawings. So it's worth figuring out how to do that and finding good workflow. But yeah, there's plenty of videos for you to take a look at in there. Okay, so here on this main scene, we've got the jar at the front of him. So you can see that, that's kind of like the base here. I've got the main blue jar, which sits behind him, which is the glass. And then I've got the mesh, which is over his head, that I can then use to move him backwards and forwards. So we've got all sorts of keys of drawings of things we've created already. So I'm going to delete all of these keys, I think, for the animation. So I'll click on the first key, I'll right click and then choose the option to select all the following keys only in this column. And I can just tap the delete key, and that should be the animation gone for that column. And then for the head, we've got the first couple of drawings here we want to use, which is the blink, and we'll time this out a little bit more for that. And then I've got some of the drawings here. I think I might start again and just create the timing myself of what we want him to do. So what I'll do is I'll click on that first drawing, number 7. I'll go to the very end, just hold shift, click on the last drawing, and again press the delete key, and they're gone. Now I need to make sure the jar's always visible, so don't move his head outside of the jar. So I think one of the best things to do at first is to take a look at the stage schematic for how these columns are fitted together. Things are running a little slow here, so let me just take a look at that, see if I can change anything. Get the mouse pointer up here. Yeah, OBS is using a lot of the computer over there, so I need to adjust a few other things if I can. No, I don't think I can change anything. Might have to just cope with that. We'll see how that goes. Yeah, absolutely. That's good, Yulichek. I'm glad you found that. Yeah, having one layer with the mouths is great. Copy and pasting them or dragging them from the timeline works, but the Q and W keys, adjusting them, as I'm about to do in a second for the subscene, is a quicker way to do so. But yeah, that's good. I'm glad you found that useful. It's a nice little technique that works nicely. Let me just zoom on here to show as many frames as possible, but I do want to see the frame numbers. So I'll reduce it down till they go to the dots there, and then back up a little bit to see the number. And I wish there was a button to press or a right click option to reset the minimum size to see the drawing numbers. It just makes it easier to work with them. Let's look at this stage schematic. And in fact, the nodes are all over the place, so I'll reset them by pressing one of these buttons at the bottom. That's to target the current, and that one there is to reorder the nodes. So if I click that, it'll reorder the nodes, hopefully so they're all visible on screen, like this. And all the columns are inside a single group, which we don't want, so I'll right click on that and choose to ungroup them. And again, I'll reorder the nodes with this button. And it's introduced a number of pegs. It does this often when you've imported a subscene from elsewhere. We'll worry about that in a minute. Let's ungroup the next set of columns. Before I do, let me hit save, just in case something goes wrong. Right click on the group, and then ungroup those. Some more pegs, and again let's reorder them, and we're now much closer. So let's delete the pegs we don't want by highlighting them and pressing the delete key. I don't use pegs myself as much because the values don't appear, the keys don't appear on the timeline, so it kind of makes them invisible. So I don't like using pegs really. Personally, I prefer to use columns on the timeline, and that's exactly what I'm going to do to position the head inside the jar. Let me just confirm that the jar includes, it does, is neck brace. So I'm going to select on frame 1. I'm going to add a new level. It doesn't matter of the level type. I'm not even going to use it or name it. I'll press OK, and I'll name the column by double clicking on it. I'll name the column align head, and this is just to align the head to. But now I can connect all the columns to that column here, and delete those 2 pegs because they're no longer used. In fact, to align the head, I don't want to connect everything. My mistake. The jar front doesn't need connecting. The jar back doesn't need connecting because they're in the right place at the minute. It's the head mesh here that I need to adjust. So on the align head column, I've got that selected. I'm on the animate tool, I'm checking align head is in the drop down, which it is. And then I'll zoom in a little bit to the viewer. Once I can, here we go. Going really slow at the minute. Click on the menu there and I'll see when that opens up. So I'm not going to touch it, otherwise it will crash. Let's wait till that opens up. And because I've been running for a while, I'll hit save to make sure I've got everything saved. I'll close this and I'll restart Tahoma just to give it a fresh start. And that might help solve some of these slowdown issues. I should really have restarted it when I went from one project to this one. But as I say, with having OBS running, that does slow things down on my system a lot anyway. So we'll see how it moves at the minute when it comes back. Let's load my Nixon project. Okay, so back to the align head column. I've got that selected with the animate tool. And I want to align the head so it fits in this neck container here. So I'll just click and drag that so he's placed there. It's fine. Good. So now the animation key for the position of the head isn't on the mesh level or the head column itself. Yeah, no worries, Soda Pop. Yeah, feel free, feel free. So, on to now work out the timing of when I want the action to happen. So again, let's check on the zoom. So it's as small as possible. Close enough. I know it jitters around a little bit, so it can go slightly smaller, but it's hard to adjust at that. So I need to make extensive use of the insert key to extend the timing. It's really useful, and I'd really strongly recommend that you set up a keyboard shortcut for the insert key, insert frame and move frame commands, so you can adjust your timing in this way a lot easier. I wouldn't copy and paste. I'd use the Q and W keys, Ulichek, because yes, you can reverse them. And if it's just the drawings, as I've got here, my eye blink is a sequential set of drawings. So 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then the eyes are open. But if it's just 2, 3, and 4, then you wanted 4, 3, and 2, you can just highlight over them, right-click, edit cell numbers, and then choose reverse to reverse those drawings you've got there. Or if you choose swing, that would swing from 2 up to 4 and then 4 down to 2. So that's kind of a seesaw playback. Or you can just use the Q and W keys to adjust the numbers. And that's true whether it be on the drawing level itself, or as I've got here, it's the it's a subscene. Its frames in the subscene is exactly the same. Once you're in the scene above, that subscene works exactly the same as a standard drawing level. It's the Blenderer. Yes, thank you. I really enjoyed the Nixon head, and I put this together, and I was really pleased with how it came out. Carlos, hello Colombia. Good to have you with us. Is it Carlos or Carlo? Please let me know. I'll try and get your name right if I can. So before he blinks, I'm quite happy for him to sit there still for a little while. So I'll press my Control Insert key, and that pushes everything to the right. That gives it 1 second. And on this animation, it's a kind of a background animation, so I don't want it catching your eye. I want it to move quite slowly. So I'm happy to extend it further, 2 seconds there. And I expect I'll come back and extend these timings even more. Okay, I'm just looking at this jar front. It's got some animation keys. I'm interested in what they are, so I'm going to take a quick look at them before I go any further. I don't think I need them. If I go to the timing room and look at the jar front column by clicking on it, press the button at the top right, and it gives you a clearer view to more easily see the actual figures of what the animation keys are. There we go. So the X stays at 15 all the way through, so I don't need the second key. So I can delete it from here by dragging over those keys and then pressing delete. And on the timeline you see the key disappears. So the original key is just for the position, X position of that jar front, just to align it together. So I don't need the rest of those animation keys. So I can leave that exactly where it is and leave it locked so I don't accidentally adjust it. I'll also leave the jar back locked so I don't adjust that as well. Okay, so we've got a little blink and I'm going to have a second little blink. So I'm going to just click and drag over those drawings, press Ctrl C, go to later on and press Ctrl V, and then in between there I'm going to press Ctrl Insert again, just to insert a bunch of frames to give us a gap. So he does a couple of blinks here. Then if I extend this out and press W to make drawing 7, and then I can highlight those two and drag out to get all the other frames from the subscene ready for retiming, so I can see exactly at this level what they are. So let's click and drag over these to have a look. So he did a blink first, then he looks around a little bit. That's right, yep. So drawing 6, I'm going to extend again with a Control Insert. So it's going to do a couple of blinks, just looking forward, and then you can start to look around. I'll Control Insert. There, I know the animation of that was 2 frames long. And I want to make sure there is movement between those 2 frames, so I'll step into the subscene of where his eyes are moving. I remember it didn't have movement at first between the first couple of keys. Same there. So if I right click on that white line, I can change the interpolation. So from 8 to 10, there is some movement. And then from 10 to 12, there isn't. So again, I'll right click on the line, and if I catch it wrong, it shows that menu. But right click on the line itself, you see this menu where you can change the interpolation type. I've changed that to speed in and out. So from 10 to 12, there's some animation again. 12 to 14, there isn't. So again, on 13 on that white line, I'll right click until I see the interpolation menu. There we go. And try again. Speed in, speed out. So 12, 13, 14 has the same 2-frame animation. And then it's the eyebrows. So again, back to the main timeline. So again, we've got 7, 8, 9 and 10. Let me press Control Insert. And again on 12. So we've got a bit of a look down there. Look up here. Look over there. Seven, 8. It's 3 frames, 7, 8 and 9. So if I Control Delete to bring them back, it's 9 I want to extend. And then it's 10, 11, 12. So he looks down there for a second. Then he looks over there. Seven, 8, 9. Then 9 and 10. Alright, so I need to extend 10. And then 11, 12 to look back towards us. Yep. 13, 14. Hit save so don't forget. There really are soda pop Made for artists, absolutely. And again, I wish more people would come across OpenToonz and Tahoma and start using them, and CSP, as you're saying. But these are my main two programs. And that's why I'm really excited when I see people on the Discord server saying they're a teacher, like Mirikat earlier, where she shared some animation she'd made, and she was talking about the class she's teaching, and she was working on a parallax effect. So it's great that having one person on the Discord server, that's now 15 kids in their class that have been introduced to OpenToonz or Tahoma and will start animating. They'll show their friends, and hopefully it'll steamroll a little bit and snowball, and the word will get out there, all being well. 13, 14, with a small gap, and then eyebrows, get it right, eyebrows at 15, and that a little bit. I'm just trying to get a bit of a feel for the timing, just by letting some of the frames breathe for a second and last for a few frames. So a little bit of a look around for a few frames each. Down, 19, 20. And then his eyebrows need to come down again. And I started frame 20 with the eyebrows already down. So this is something Ulichek was talking about for if you've got eyes blinking and you want to reverse the frames. It's exactly what I want to do here. So from drawing 19 with the eyebrow high, I need to reverse it and have the eyebrows coming back down again here. So I need 16, then 15, then 14 after this. So I'll extend these drawings and I'll simply click into one of the frames and press the Q key until I see 16. The next frame, Q key, down to 15, Q key, down to 14. Leave it like that for a few frames to breathe. So that looks like this. Because his eyebrows are high, and then they just start to come down. And then we're ready to continue with the next bit of the animation, which is just a bit of mouth movement. So he's going grimacing his teeth. He's biting his lip. And the next one is an ooh, but I won't do that. I'll have a straight mouth first. So 14, so I'm going to change that frame by pressing Q down to 14. I'll leave that for a while. I think I might be moving these, setting these mouth shapes for a little bit too short a period. And his mouth is still here. And I want to do another bit of an eye blink just to break up the process. So again, I'll press the Q and W, bring down to the blink frames, which are 2, 3, 4, 5, I believe. So let's just press Q to number 2. What I should have done was highlight a number of them. So I'll do that now and bring that down to just all of those frames, down to 2, and then 3, 4, and 5, and 6. And 6 is then standard static face. And then I think I'll copy the eye movement. So if we look where we are, frame 252. I'll use a bit of eye wandering here, where there's 3 frames. So 7, 8, 9. I'll just copy those. Drawing 6 in here, and I'll just paste them over the top of these, and it'll push the other drawings to the side. And I can click and extend the timing. I'd like to think that one day OpenToonz could rule the world, could get out there and be widely used. Everywhere I get to, I try and shout about OpenToonz and Tahoma. Whether I'm on a Facebook page or a Reddit post or Discord or someone else's Discord or what have you, I try to let them know that what I'm doing is in OpenToonz. Or if I see other people's animations or art that are made in OpenTunes, share that and let other people know. And slowly it's building up, and I don't know at what time it'll achieve the best pacing for people to really understand what OpenTunes is, but hopefully at some point it will do so. I think what it needs, as has been mentioned before, is for people to actually create animations, get them out there and say, here's my animation that's been made in OpenTunes. And I think that's what's going to get people's attention to see something great and go, oh, that's what it can do. And I think that's going to drag people in. Because it's what Blender did, isn't it, at the beginning? They made a few animations themselves and shared them, and that got people excited about Blender and Grease Pencil. So yeah, hopefully if we can do that. And from my point of view, what I'm doing is the other side, sort of the teaching side, to get the word out from me to you, so you can make the animations and get them out there. Because with one person, I can make one animation in the next few months or 6 months, what have you, push it out there, and people have seen one animation from me and OpenTunes. But if I can show how to use OpenTunes to 10, 20, 30 of you, then that's 30 cartoons out there. So for me, that's the best way for me to get the word out about OpenTunes, is to give you the tools you need. However, I would still like to be able to make my own animations, whether it be short memes, single image, or a bit of a cartoon, which is where we're going to come on to in the next few weeks on these Sunday streams. But we'll get to that when we get to it. Exactly. Why use those software? And actually, I do keep seeing people asking about OpenTunes compared to Flash, Adobe Animate, and they say, can OpenTunes do what Adobe Animate does? Does OpenTunes have a library? Do they call it in Flash? You know what I mean. Can you store sets of animations? Does it have this feature? Does it have that feature? Can I move over? So I think it'd be useful for some of the things I do to show that OpenTunes can do what you can do in other programs. It's Quijin Comic Art. Hello there. And I've no doubt slaughtered your name, but welcome. Glad you joined us. I think it's the first time I've seen your name. Is it your first time on the stream, or have you been here before? Thank you very much. Kujin? Is that closer? Kujin. Cool name. I like that. Ages ago. Well, it's good to have you back. I'm glad you found us again. Oh, as you can see by the little pop-up there, just to let you know, I'm streaming on Twitch and on YouTube. And for you, Kujin, or anybody else that missed it earlier, the whole stream is being recorded, so it's available later on YouTube to re-watch. You can follow me on my socials, Facebook, Twitter, and a Discord invite below if you want to join me on Discord to ask questions later or put forward suggestions for these streams. And if you found the stream helpful, you can buy me a coffee, and there's a link down below for that. I think that's all of the background. I've not done that for a while. So let me jump on back to this head in the jar. So what we're doing here, Kujin, if you've not seen before, is I've created a background to use during these streams. If I jump over to it here, and it's at the minute it's an empty study. I've got empty shelves. I've got my comfy chair here, and I want to try and fill the shelves. So today's task is to do add some filling to the shelves. So I've drawn some books already for the top few shelves, or for the far set of shelves. I've got a couple of my images that I'm going to put on the shelves in OBS as little pictures. There's like pictures on the shelves and a small animation. And I'm just going to bring over this Nixon head in the jar animation. Hello, fella. That I created quite a while ago for a an Independence Day animation that I made, just a bit of fun, and I'm just creating a basic bit of movement just so he's got some action in the background as he sits on the top shelf to give him some life, and I'll put that into OBS as a background animation just so he's there doing his little thing. Yeah, no problem, Kujin. I'll get your name right soon. Yep, no problem. You find me over on Twitch if that's more comfortable for you. I know some people prefer Twitch or YouTube, which is why I'm on both. Try and get you in here. So Alexius Poorman. Same person as Kujin, fine. Change your name to make it easier to read for me, I think. Alexius. Anyway, welcome, Alexius. Good to have you with us. So I've added, already made some small animation for the character here. He can blink, he moves his eyebrows and his mouth. So I'm just pasting this over slowly over time, just to give some movement. And I'm going to use the plastic tool mesh to rock his head, if I go that way around, rock his head backwards and forwards a little bit, just so he looks like he's alive and moving rather than just a static image on the screen. So I'm going to do that. I'll render it out off stream to probably a WebM file, because that's been fixed into Tahoma 1.2, where you can have transparent backgrounds, so it makes it easier for animations like this to be put in front of other drawings or animation. So we're just taking a look here, and my system is crawling really slowly today, so we'll see how it continues for the rest of the stream. I think I'll be here for about another hour or so today, just to finish this off. I think we're coming towards the end of this. We started at 3 PM and today is 6:02, so we've been going for 3 hours so far. I'm getting a little tired, so I'll probably just finish this off as the last piece before we finish for the day. But if you want to join me again next Sunday, hopefully I'm here each Sunday from around 3 PM. I do different things each Sunday, but come along and join me when you can, and you'll see some of that. Okay, so there's a little bit of eye movement, and frame drawing 14 basically the same, so I don't need any of that, so I'll delete that. Bring the rest of the drawings over. Yeah, at some point in Solar Pop I'd like to. I've got too many things queued up at the minute to get to that. As I think you know, and other people here on the stream know, I've got a Futurama side project that I'd like to get back to next. And that's where I'm aiming as the next large project. Once I've finished the study off here, probably today to be honest, I may come back over the next few weeks. So I'd like to get through that first, but then yes, absolutely, I'd then love to work on my own project to get my own characters animated. So let's just see what we've got then. So yeah, some mouth movement. So we made a bit of a ooh shape. Let's extend that out. That's a long way, so let's bring that down a little bit. 24, hit save. And then we've got the eyes closed, turn to the other side, eyes open, and then basically we can start again from the beginning. And I might literally do that. Now it's turned around. I'll take the first drawing, hold shift, and I'll select, try it again. So select the first drawing, hold shift, I'll slide over to the right, select the last drawing, press Ctrl C, and after he turns around, press Ctrl V, and then I want to do a flip of the head. So it's turned to the right. I need a key here, an animation key. If I look at scale, so let me test out, it's either horizontal or vertical. I think it's horizontal. Yeah. So I've put that back to 100%. and press enter, that'll create a key, horizontal key. Then on the next frame, go to the horizontal and put -100 and press enter. That'll flip him around. And then if I go to the position and then adjust his position to the right, I need to make sure that doesn't change. So back to the previous frame, put his X back to 0. That wasn't set before. And then this one, I need to align it back to the same place. If I go between those two frames, place that to cover that little line there. I think that might be fine. Because it is as he turns around. I don't think you'll notice that change. Now do the same animation again, facing in the opposite direction. Go to the end here. Weird. Let him. That's because the plastic mesh ended. It'll only be visible as far as you can see the plastic mesh. I need to push that to the end. So I'll extend that up to frame number 675. So I'll click on the last frame, right click, edit cell numbers. Anything to do with the frame numbers for the current drawing is in the edit cell numbers section. And I'll repeat that up to frame 675. Repeat. So that'll push it to the end. I can see that. Now do the same with the jar, front and back. Right click, edit cell numbers, repeat 675, and the same for the jar front, edit cell numbers, repeat up to 675, repeat, hit save. Are they all European software? I don't know, to be honest. Boxiness with the room style. I quite like this rooms style with the boxy, the panels docked in different places. For me, that works really well. It really fits. So I didn't finish the jar fronts. Let me just do the same. Edit cell numbers, repeat, and 675, repeat. Save. Go to the end and set the play markers. So the last play marker is on 675. That stop marker. And then let's see how that looks by going to the preview settings. Oh, from Italy. Oh, mamma mia. Shrink it by 3, 1 to 675. Hit preview. Could take a while to do this, so we'll see if it goes too slow or not. We have a while we do. That's not too bad. Yeah, that was quick. Of course, I will have to turn his head around the other way. Starting at the beginning. Let's just see the pacing. It's going to go far too quickly, as I'd expect. There's a bit of shuffling in the middle there I need to look at. Okay, so he starts off facing to the left, and he goes to the right. 327, does it again, and then goes back to the left. Let's just look at that. Turns to the right. Now flip to my early drawings. If I hit play, I can see it moving. So that works fine. Not sure why I did that funny change. Thank you, Kujin. I'll drag this bar, I can move it a lot quicker. Just some movements. Changes to the side. Oh, maybe that's just an artifact of the preview. We'll have a look again at the preview settings. 12675, 3, preview. Let's see how that comes out. A lot of it was far too fast, so I'll slow it down. We need to have another head turn at the end, so I'll include that as well. Resize to reset the view. In fact, if I just drag this, what's all that? Turns to the left, then he turns to the right. Anyone would think he's doing the time warp. That's really strange. That's a quirk there of Tahoma, so I might reload. In fact, rather than reload, let's do as we did before. Close down Tahoma and start again. Often the best way to fix issues. My computer is really sluggish at the minute with OBS. That could be what's affecting that. Yeah, it's going really clunky at the minute. Yes, I'm using OBS to stream with at the minute. It's taken up quite a lot of my processor and slowing things down. Part of the reason could be because, for instance, I've got my webcam on and I'm using a green screen. So let me just turn that off and see if that makes a difference. In fact, no, it's my system.